It's the kind of secret you never want to hear, especially when it slips out from the lips of your roommate while he's dead asleep. Ethan wasn't supposed to whisper my name like that, soft and needy, as if he were confessing something too heavy for the day. And I wasn't supposed to lean in, trembling with the weight of my own hidden feelings, pressing my lips to his just to see if he'd stir. But he didn't. He kept dreaming. Instead, he turned in his sleep and, like some cruel miracle, wrapped his arm around me, tugging me closer as if I belonged there. I sat there stunned, the scent of his skin in my nose, the warmth of his chest against mine, and the unbearable truth settling in. I had just crossed a line I could never uncross. College was supposed to be simple. Classes, late-night pizzas, half-broken friendships patched with laughter, and the messy chaos of growing up. Not this. Not falling in love with Ethan Cole, the golden boy of our university, the guy with the sharp jawline and reckless grin who everyone swore would be running for office one day. He wasn't just my roommate. He was my opposite. Ethan had the kind of charm that lit up every room. He was politics, sports, and popularity. I was quiet, guarded, scribbling poetry into notebooks I kept hidden beneath my mattress. Our lives were parallel lines that should never have touched. But late at night, when the world was silent, I'd hear him shift in bed and mutter things under his breath. Dreams leaking into the darkness. Names, feelings, secrets. And one night it was my name. I should have laughed it off, pretended I hadn't heard, but instead I kissed him. And now everything is spiraling. Morning came like punishment. Ethan stretched out in bed, rubbing his eyes, his hair a mess of golden brown strands, his voice groggy but still devastatingly warm. "Dude, you were up late again?" he asked, noticing the shadows under my eyes. If only he knew. If only he remembered. But he didn't. The night lived only in my memory, like some fever dream stitched into my skin. "Yeah," I muttered, pretending to flip through a textbook. Couldn't sleep. His gaze lingered on me, a little too long, before he smirked the way he always did, like nothing could ever weigh him down. He had no idea he'd whispered my name, no idea I'd kissed him, and no idea that I was falling, helplessly, dangerously, into something I couldn't stop. The days blurred, and every moment with him became torture. When he laughed with his friends in the common room, I saw the boy who once wrapped an arm around me in his sleep. When he ran across the quad, sun on his face, I remembered how his breath had ghosted against my lips. And when he tossed a casual, "Hey, wanna grab dinner?" my heart nearly broke at how normal he sounded. I started avoiding him, but that only made him notice more. "Bro, you've been weird lately," Ethan said one Friday night, tossing a football from hand to hand in our dorm. His eyes narrowed, studying me with unnerving precision. Did I do something? I froze. My throat closed up. The truth hovered like a blade, but I couldn't cut us open with it. "No, elite. It's nothing." But Ethan never settled for nothing. That weekend, everything cracked. We went to a house party together. A big, sweaty mess of bodies and music blasting so loud it made the floorboards tremble. Ethan thrived in it, laughing, dancing, shot after shot. And me? I stuck to the edges, watching him from a distance, the way I always did. Some girl leaned into him, whispering something into his ear. He grinned, his hand brushing her waist. My chest burned, though I had no right. None at all. I left before he could see the storm in my face. But he found me anyway, sitting on the curb outside, my hands shaking. "Why'd you leave?" he asked, crouching down beside me. His voice was softer now, stripped of the party's noise. "What's going on with you?" And maybe it was the alcohol, maybe it was the ache in my chest, maybe it was the way his eyes caught the streetlight like they were searching for me, Whatever it was, I broke. "You talk in your sleep," I blurted. He blinked. "What? You say things?" I stammered, my throat raw. "You said my name." His mouth opened, then closed. For the first time in forever, Ethan Cole didn't have a quick comeback. "And my voice cracked. "I kissed you." The silence that followed was unbearable. Ethan stared at me, the football player, debate club president golden boy, suddenly stripped of all his easy armor. His jaw flexed, his breath hitched. "And then, you kissed me," he repeated, as if testing the words. I nodded, shame burning me alive. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Forget it." But instead of walking away, instead of pushing me back into the shadow where I belonged, Ethan sat down beside me on the curb. His shoulder brushed mine. His voice was low, almost unsteady. "What if I don't want to forget?" My heart stopped. I didn't sleep that night, not because of guilt this time, but because of what he said, what it meant. He didn't run. He didn't laugh. He didn't push me away. Instead, he sat with me under the dim glow of the streetlight, both of us shivering, both of us too scared to speak the truth out loud. But something shifted, something irreversible. The next days were different. He lingered more. He'd sit closer, brush against me accidentally, hold my gaze a second too long, and once, just once, I caught him watching me like I had always watched him. Terrified me. Because this love wasn't safe. Not here. Not in this world that still tore people apart for less. But the more I tried to run from it, the closer he came. And one night, as the world outside raged with autumn storms, Ethan Cole finally whispered something not in his sleep, but wide awake. "I think I've been waiting for you to tell me that," he said. And for the first time, I let myself believe it. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm inside me. Every raindrop that hit the window sounded like a countdown, like time pressing on me to do something, say something, before this fragile thing between us broke. Ethan sat on the floor of our dorm, back against his bed frame, legs stretched out, tossing a stress ball from hand to hand. He looked calm, but his eyes, God, his eyes, burned into me with the weight of unspoken words. "You've been different too," I said finally, my voice barely audible over the rain. He didn't deny it. He just caught the ball midair and set it aside. His fingers tapped against his thigh, restless, like he was fighting with himself. "Yeah," he admitted, "because now I know I wasn't just imagining it." I stared at him, heart pounding. "Imagining what?" He stopped, dragging a hand through his hair. Ethan Cole, smooth talker, never at a loss for words, suddenly fumbling. "That I wanted this. That I wanted you." Felt like the floor dropped out beneath me. The next days felt unreal, like walking through a dream I had no right to live in. We didn't talk about labels, didn't try to make sense of it. Instead, we lived in stolen glances, brushes of hands that lingered too long, nights where silence felt like confessions. But silence was dangerous. Silence gave me time to think, to remember the world outside our little dorm room bubble. People noticed. "You and Cole are attached at the hip lately," one of his friends teased in the cafeteria, smirking as Ethan and I slid onto the same bench. "Didn't think you'd trade football practice for poetry club, man." I froze, my fork clattering against the tray. Ethan just laughed, brushing it off. "Guess I'm expanding my horizons," he said easily, nudging my shoulder like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing, not to me. Because for every laugh he gave, every casual brush off, I felt the eyes on us, the questions brewing, the assumptions. And I wasn't sure how long we could keep pretending. came to a head one Saturday. We were supposed to meet friends for a tailgate before the big game, but Ethan dragged me out to the edge of campus instead, where the trees hid us from the world. "I can't do this halfway anymore," he said suddenly, his voice sharp with frustration. "I don't want to keep acting like it's nothing when it's everything." I blinked, stunned. "Ethan." He stepped closer, his jaw tight. "Do you know what it's like? To be standing next to you, wanting to hold your hand, and pretending I don't? To hear your laugh and bite my tongue so no one notices I'm staring? To feel like I'm living two lives every damn day." My chest tightened. "Yes, I do." His anger broke, softened into something raw. "Then why are you still running?" "Because it's not just about us," I whispered. "You know what people will say, what they'll do." He grabbed my wrist, his grip firm, his eyes blazing. "Let them. Let the whole damn world talk. I don't care anymore." But I did. Because love wasn't supposed to feel like a war. And yet here we were, fighting battles before we even had the chance to breathe. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, listening to Ethan's steady breathing from across the room, and hated myself for wanting what I couldn't have. Except at some point his bed creaked. The soft shuffle of footsteps crossed the room, and then the mattress dipped beside me. Ethan lay down, so close our shoulders brushed, his breath warm against my cheek. "I can't stop thinking about you," he whispered in the dark. I turned, my face inches from his. "Ethan." He didn't wait. He kissed me. Not the tentative brush of lips I'd stolen that night, he whispered in his sleep, but something real. Hungry, desperate, alive. His hand cupped the back of my neck, pulling me into him like he'd been holding back for too long. And I broke. I let go of all the fear, all the doubt, and kissed him back with everything I had. For a moment, the world didn't exist. Just his lips, his hands, the shiver running down my spine as he whispered my name between breaths. When he finally pulled back, his forehead pressed to mine, he was trembling. "Tell me you don't want this, and I'll stop." But I couldn't, because I did want it, more than anything. So I didn't tell him no. The morning after felt both terrifying and beautiful. Ethan sprawled on my bed, hair messy, sheets tangled around his legs. He grinned at me, lazy and unguarded, like we'd just rewritten the rules of the universe and he was perfectly fine with it. But reality seeped back in with the daylight. We had practice, classes, friends, a whole campus full of eyes, and secrets like ours don't stay hidden forever. By the following week, whispers started. Nothing concrete, just looks, questions, murmurs that hung in the air whenever we walked by. And then it happened. A group of guys from Ethan's team cornered him outside the gym. I wasn't there, but I heard about it from someone else. Voices raised, cruel words thrown like punches. "Faggot," they said. "Sleeping with your roommate, huh? That why you've been slacking at practice?" Ethan came back to the dorm that night with a split lip and fury in his eyes. "They don't get to do that to us," he spat, slamming his backpack onto the floor. "They don't get to make us feel like this." I reached for him, but he pulled away, pacing the room. "You think hiding makes it easier? It doesn't. It just lets them win." My voice cracked. "And what if coming out makes us lose everything?" His chest heaved, his lip bleeding, his hands shaking. But when he looked at me, there was nothing but fire in his gaze. "Then at least we lose together." I wish I could say I was brave enough to follow him right then. But fear is a heavy thing, and it chained me to silence. Still, Ethan didn't give up on me. He didn't stop reaching for my hand when no one was looking, didn't stop slipping notes under my books, didn't stop finding ways to remind me we were real. One night I asked him why. Why keep trying when I was so broken, so afraid? He smiled, tired but soft. "Because you're worth it, and because I'm done pretending my feelings are something to be ashamed of." It broke me open. For the first time, I started to believe him, to believe us. But the world wasn't finished testing us. The university hosted its annual debate tournament, and Ethan, of course, was front and center, representing the school. I went to support him, sitting in the back row, hiding in the shadows. He was brilliant, commanding the room with his voice, his conviction, until someone in the audience heckled him. Don't listen to him. He's probably too busy kissing his boyfriend to know anything about politics. Laughter rippled through the room. My blood ran cold. Ethan froze for a fraction of a second. Then he smiled, calm, controlled, but sharp as a blade. You know, he said into the microphone, if your best insult is that I might be in love with someone, then maybe it's not me who has the problem. Maybe it's you. The room went silent. And for the first time, Ethan didn't hide. That night, he came back to the dorm exhausted but triumphant. His voice was hoarse, his eyes rimmed red, but when he saw me, he smiled. I meant it, he said simply. Every word. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I crossed the room, cupped his face in my hands, and kissed him like I'd never kissed him before. Because for the first time, I wasn't just kissing him in the shadows. I was kissing him in the light of who he was, who we were, and who we could be. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The kiss that night changed everything. It wasn't just a secret pressed between dorm walls anymore. Ethan had spoken out in public, standing tall, daring the world to challenge him. And I, terrified, trembling, was beginning to see that maybe courage wasn't about never being afraid. Maybe it was about loving him anyway, despite the fear. But love, as always, had consequences. The fallout came faster than either of us expected. Whispers turned into stares. Stares turned into rumors. By Monday morning, the campus felt different, like the ground shifted beneath our feet. Walking into the cafeteria with Ethan at my side was like walking under a spotlight. A girl at the next table leaned in, not so quietly, whispering to her friend, "That's them. That's the roommate thing." My skin prickled, heat crawling up my neck, but Ethan didn't flinch. He just carried his tray, sat down across from me, and started eating like the whole world wasn't buzzing around us. "You okay?" he asked, his tone maddeningly casual, like he hadn't just made us the center of attention on a campus that thrived on gossip. "No," I admitted, voice low. "Not really." His gaze softened. "Then let me carry it for both of us." I wanted to believe him. God, I did. But when my phone buzzed later with a text from my mom, "Heard something about you. Is it true? Call me." The weight came crashing down again. Home was worse. My parents had never been cruel, but they had expectations. Plans. A version of me that didn't include kissing my roommate or falling for someone who wasn't supposed to fit the mold. When I called, my mother's voice cracked. "Honey, people are talking. Your aunt saw something online. A picture of you too close." "It's not what it looks like." I lied instinctively, shame burning in my throat. But Ethan's voice echoed in my head. "Then at least we lose together." And for the first time, I didn't want to lie anymore. "Actually," I said, my voice steady even as my hands shook, "it's exactly what it looks like." The silence on the other end was worse than yelling. "Your father will want to talk," my mom said finally, clipped and cold. "We'll discuss this when you come home." When I hung up, I couldn't breathe. Ethan found me curled up on the floor, clutching my phone like it was a weapon. "What happened?" he asked, kneeling beside me. "My parents," I choked out. "They know. They're not okay with it." Ethan's hand hovered, then settled on mine. "Then we'll face them. Together." But the word together felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. We'd been living in a strange limbo, half free, half hiding. Ethan refused to shrink, but I kept folding myself smaller, trying to disappear under the weight of judgment. And one night, it all exploded. "I can't keep doing this," Ethan snapped, pacing the room. "I can't keep pretending it doesn't hurt when you pull away every time someone looks at us. I'm scared," I shouted back, my chest heaving. "I don't have your courage, Ethan. I can't just stand there and let them tear me apart." His face twisted, not in anger, but in something worse, hurt. "So what then?" he asked softly. "You'd rather tear us apart instead?" The silence that followed was unbearable. Finally, Ethan grabbed his jacket. "I need air." The door slammed, and I was left alone in the echo of my own cowardice. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan grew distant. Not cruel, never cruel, but guarded. He still sat across from me in class, still lived in the same room, still smiled when he thought I wasn't looking. But the fire was dimmer. The space between us stretched wider. I told myself it was safer this way, that maybe we'd survive if we went back to being just roommates, just friends. But every time I heard his laugh with someone else, every time I watched him walk away without glancing back, my chest hollowed out. And then came the letter. It was late, the dorm quiet, when Ethan dropped a folded piece of paper on my desk. "Read it when you're ready," he said, his voice calm but final. Then he climbed into bed and turned away. My hands shook as I unfolded it. His handwriting sprawled across the page, messy and rushed, like the words couldn't be contained. "I don't know how to keep loving you in the dark. I've tried to be patient, tried to wait until you were ready, but every time you hide, it feels like you're hiding from me. I don't want to force you into something you can't handle, but I can't keep pretending either. I love you, more than I should, more than makes sense, more than I thought possible. But if love means tearing you apart, then maybe the kindest thing I can do is let you go." By the time I finished reading, the ink was smudged with tears. The next morning, his bed was empty. The note sat heavy in my pocket as I stumbled through campus, searching, desperate. My chest felt like it was splitting open. I'd been so afraid of losing everything, but the truth was simpler, sharper. I was losing him. And losing Ethan Cole was unthinkable. I found him at the edge of the football field, sitting alone in the bleachers, staring out at the empty turf like it held the answers. "Ethan?" I gasped, breathless from running. He turned, surprise flashing across his face. But his eyes were tired, guarded, as if he'd already decided I wasn't coming. "I got your letter," I said, my voice breaking. He nodded, looking away. I meant every word. I climbed the steps, heart pounding. "Then hear me when I say this. I don't want you to let me go." His gaze snapped back to me, sharp and disbelieving. "I'm scared," I admitted, tears burning hot. "I'm terrified of what people will say, of what my family will think, of how the world will treat us. But do you want to know what's worse than all of that?" He waited, breath caught. "Living without you." For a moment the world was silent. Just the wind, the empty field, and the space between us. Then Ethan stood, every muscle tense, his eyes searching mine. "You mean that?" he asked, his voice raw. I nodded, my throat tight. "I don't care if I'm not brave yet. I'll get there. Just don't give up on me." And for the first time in weeks, his walls cracked. Relief, fierce and overwhelming, flooded his face. In 2 steps he was in front of me, his hands on my cheeks, his lips crashing against mine in a kiss that tasted like hope. From that moment we stopped hiding. It wasn't easy. There were still whispers, still stares, still moments where the weight of the world felt unbearable. But we had each other, and that made all the difference. When people mocked, Ethan held my hand tighter. When my parents called with disappointment heavy in their voices, he stayed by my side. When nights got dark and doubts crept in, he whispered, "Together, remember?" Until I believed it again. We weren't perfect. We fought, we stumbled, we learned. But through it all, love held us steady. Because in the end, it wasn't about being fearless. It was about being afraid and choosing each other anyway. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to change everything. The semester rolled forward, carrying us with it. What had started as whispers in the dark had become something solid, something we refused to bury anymore. But the truth is, being with Ethan wasn't a fairy tale. It was real, and real meant complicated. The campus didn't suddenly become kind. There were still the lingering stares, the muttered slurs behind our backs, the occasional cruel comment muttered loud enough for us to hear. One afternoon, walking across the quad, a guy on the bench sneered as we passed, "Faggots!" The word cut deep, sharp as glass. My chest clenched, and instinct screamed at me to shrink, to let go of Ethan's hand before things escalated. But Ethan squeezed tighter. He didn't even look at the guy. He just kept walking, chin high, shoulders steady. And because of him, so did I. "Don't give them your fear," he said softly when we were out of earshot. "They feed on it." I swallowed hard, glancing at him. "How do you do it? How do you keep standing tall when the world's like this?" His smile was faint, tired but resolute. "Because I'm not standing alone." Thanksgiving break came, and with it, the confrontation I'd been dreading. Going home. My parents had been cool and clipped on the phone, but nothing prepared me for the silence of my father's stare when I walked through the door. Dinner was strained, every clink of cutlery too loud, every word too sharp. Finally, my mother broke. "This isn't you," she said, voice trembling. "You've let him," she couldn't even say Ethan's name, "confuse you." My hands shook under the table, but I forced myself to lift my chin. "No one confused me," I said. "I love him." The silence that followed was crushing. My father pushed back his chair, his jaw tight. "This conversation is over." I wanted to break, to apologize, to fold myself back into the son they wanted. But Ethan's voice echoed in my head. "Together." So I didn't apologize. And even though my parents didn't accept me that night, even though I left with my chest hollow, I knew something had shifted inside me. I had chosen honesty over fear, and that was something I couldn't take back. When I returned to campus, Ethan was waiting outside the dorm, leaning against the brick wall, hands shoved in his pockets. His face softened when he saw me. "How was it?" he asked gently. "Hard," I admitted, "but I told them. All of it." He exhaled, stepping closer, his forehead brushing mine. "I'm proud of you." And in that moment, the ache of rejection was softened by the fierce, steady truth of his love. Winter came, blanketing the campus in snow. Finals drained us, late nights and coffee-fueled cramming sessions. But somehow, even exhaustion felt lighter when Ethan was sprawled across my bed, quizzing me with flashcards in between teasing kisses. There were moments of laughter, too, like when we tried to decorate a tiny dorm Christmas tree and ended up in a tangled mess of lights, kissing under the glow instead of finishing the job. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving college. I was living it with him. But the world wasn't done testing us. The university newspaper published an article about representation in athletics and leadership, and there we were, Ethan and me, front and center. The photo wasn't intimate, just us sitting side by side at a cafe, but the headline screamed louder than any picture could. Some praised it, others sneered, And suddenly, we weren't just two boys in love, we were a statement. Panicked. The idea of being the gay roommates to the entire campus terrified me. "I didn't sign up for this," I whispered one night, clutching the newspaper like it was a threat. Ethan took it gently from my hands. "Neither did I. But maybe this is bigger than us now. Maybe we're giving someone else the courage we didn't have." I looked at him, really looked, and realized he wasn't just fearless. He was hopeful. And maybe, just maybe, hope was contagious. Spring thawed the snow, and with it, something inside me thawed too. I stopped flinching when people stared. I stopped apologizing when I slipped my hand into his in public. I stopped shrinking. We started going to campus events together, debates, games, study groups, and every time Ethan's presence grounded me. Once, during a crowded student rally, he leaned in and whispered, "I used to think loving someone like this would be impossible, but you make it feel like the most natural thing in the world." And I realized he was right. For all the noise outside, inside us, it was simple, easy, true. The night before graduation, we snuck onto the football field. The stadium lights glowed faintly, the bleachers empty, the world quiet except for us. Ethan sprawled on the 50-yard line, arms folded behind his head, staring at the sky. I lay down beside him, the cool grass pressing into my back. "Do you ever think about the first night?" he asked suddenly. I laughed softly. "You mean when you whispered my name in your sleep? And you kissed me," he added, smirking. "And you didn't wake up," I teased. He turned his head, his grin fading into something softer. "Best mistake I ever made." My chest ached with love, too big to hold. Mine too. We lay there in silence, the future looming ahead of us. Uncertain, terrifying, beautiful. But for once I wasn't afraid. Because whatever came next, I knew we'd face it together. Graduation day was chaos. Caps and gowns, proud families, flashes of cameras. My parents showed up, stiff but present, their smiles strained but not absent. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was a start. And when Ethan crossed the stage, shaking hands, his eyes found mine in the crowd. That smile, radiant, defiant, his, was all the proof I needed that we'd made it through. Later, when the crowds thinned, he pulled me aside behind the bleachers, the tassel on his cap swaying in the breeze. "We did it," he said, laughter in his voice. "Yeah," I breathed, tears burning my eyes. "We did." And then, surrounded by the noise of a world that still didn't fully understand us, Ethan kissed me. Openly, freely, fearlessly. And for the first time, I kissed him back without a single thought of who might be watching. Because this was our story. Messy, painful, beautiful, true. From a whisper in the dark to a love that survived the light, we had found something worth every risk. And though the world still had its edges, we had each other. Two boys who chose love over fear, hand in hand, ready for whatever came next. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.